Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on True Talk with Sam, July edition. Today, the 30th of July, 2024. We're live here on Zoom, and we're also live on YouTube as well. And we have a very important topic to discuss today because part of what we do is listening to the lived experience of internationally educated nurses here in the UK. The essence is to hear from them, hear their experience, and learn a lot from them. So at least we have guidance as to what we also will be doing. My guest today is quite a friend, someone I've known for some time. She's Chidinmma, and I'll be introducing her later on the program. Before I continue, I want to say congratulations to everyone working in the NHS. As at yesterday, the government approved the 5.5% pay rise. And I know some persons are not happy with it, but at least it's something that we could start up with. And without wasting much of your time, I would like to introduce my guests, Chidinmma Adaugo Chukwukere, popularly called Chichi. She was born in Lagos State, Nigeria. She's a registered nurse, a blogger, and a writer. She obtained her RON, her ROM, and BSc in nursing in 2014 from the prestigious University of Nigeria, Nsukka in Enugu State. And she has worked in various organizations and leadership capacity. Prominent was as the founding member of the now defunct Lead Nurse Africa International, where she served as the media director. And together with her team members, she organized capacity building events that linked nurses across Africa for the first time. She also worked for Nigeria's armed forces as a civilian and before relocating to the UK in March 2020 at the peak of COVID. Currently about to start a master's degree in healthcare leadership from the University of Hull, Chichi is a recipient of the Sunrise Hero from Sunrise Youth Group, Calabar, Nigeria, for her contribution to youth and teenagers via her organization, Las Gidi Nurses, and has been featured on a number of talk shows, including Prince Will's Space, The Bomb, Sunrise Youth Show, and MGM. In the past 4 years, after becoming a UKRN, Chichi has held the role of first Black practice educator and first Black trauma border holder, University Hospital Dorset. She currently works as a clinical sister in the surgical assessment unit, University Hospital Coventry and Warwickshire, and also writes for PsychRec, as well as blogs on digital health, travel, and lifestyle via her website, which is lagidinurse.com. Chichi has used her wealth of influence and leadership skills to mentor, teach, and support international nurses in achieving their career goals in the UK and has become instrumental towards providing scholarships and funds to nurses in Nigeria struggling financially through their nursing career. She is very passionate about seeing the growth of others, as well as being instrumental towards staff support and welfare in her current trust, initiating the Where in the World campaign in her unit for celebrating equality, inclusion, and diversity. Chichi is a graduate of the Florence Nightingale Foundation and a member of the Shiru Network, where she's looking forward to transforming her passion for digital health into sustainable technological solutions for improving patient care. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Chichi here with us today.
Thank you, Sam. Oh, that was quite detailed.
It was indeed.
At a point, I kept saying, is that me? But that's by the way, anyway. Thank you very much. It's a delight and an honor to be here this evening. It's actually very good to see you as well because it's been a while. But thank you very much for having me on your show. And today I will be, of course, sharing my experience. So basically, what I will be doing is I will be, talking about how my experience has been so far as a UK registered nurse. But what I'm going to be doing as well is that I will be sharing my slides. But what this would do would be I would actually put this into different phases of my growth because I feel like if I'm going to be having to talk about my journey or my transitioning through a particular phase, it has to be something I must be able to relate to say, this is where I was, how I was able to transit through that, and this is where I currently am. So that's what I'm going to be doing this evening. And like I said, it's honor once more to be here. So let me get my slides now so I can let's see get that slide as well. Um, see if that's it now. Okay, I'm just going to be a couple of minutes, just time. Let me get my slides. Yeah. Okay, so I think that should be it now. Yes. So let me ensure that that's starting from the very beginning. Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can see my slides now.
Yes,
Is it
you
visible?
can. Now
Okay,
it's not.
sorry. Let me make sure it's the right one. Okay. So yes, I'm hoping that's very clear now.
Yes, it is.
It is brilliant. Okay. Okay. So this is, like I said, a presentation on my journey to SFAR. So like Sam also mentioned, I currently work as a clinical sister in University Hospitals Coventry and Warwickshire, and I am also the CEO of Las Gidi Nurse. So I took the first quote from Winston Churchill is something that actually relates to my experience. And so what that says is the further backward you can look, the further forward you're likely to see. And why that relates to me is because having to look back at how I started, why I became a nurse, how I even decided to come into the UK in the first place, it has helped me to actually do a lot of self-reflection. It has helped me to actually appreciate the fact that I have moved, I have grown, and it has also given me the insight of how much more of my growth I would actually like to see. And then I also coined the second quote down there. When we self-reflect on how far we've come, we appreciate the growth, we appreciate the grit, the determination, the willpower it took us to get to where we are, and then the lessons that we have learned, and of course, the motivation to actually keep growing. So basically, that is what this is going to be about. I'm going to be talking about how far I've come, looking at where I started from, the growth, and the lessons I have learned, and why it is very important, of course, to continue what I'm currently doing. So, like I said, I'm going to come in different phases. I'm going to start first from the preparatory phase. I'm going to be looking at what was Chichi doing before she came into the UK, and what made her to actually leave Nigeria to decide to pursue nursing in the UK. I need to mention that that picture was a picture of me in the library when I was actually reading about coming to the UK. So I had to get that particular picture to say, okay, this reminded me of what I was actually doing just before I came in. So, just like Sam initially mentioned, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I actually lived in Agro Palace Way, and that was where I was born. And then I sort of lived a very structured and sheltered life. Let me explain. So, my parents have lived in Lagos for a while before they got married and of course had me. And then they decided that with me, I'm the first child, they didn't want me to, they wanted to sort of like put me in, try to like define what I was going to do with my life, so to say. And so they ensured that I schooled in Lagos. So I did my primary school, nursery primary school. And then when I got to my secondary school, my aunt kept telling my mom, oh, she has to move out of Lagos. She's been in Lagos for a while. Let her come to Owerri. And to make things interesting, I'm from Imo State. So my parents said, "Oh, it's good. At least you will be close to your aunt, you'll be close to your family members, you know, you have people around you, you have your cousins around you, just come around." And that was how I went to Owerri and I did my secondary school there. And then after I was done in Owerri, then it was time for me to do my BSc. And then my parents said, you know what? I kept applying to, I know I applied to Delta State. I kept trying to move out of that comfort zone that I was known with. So my mom was like, my mom again kept saying, why don't you try applying in UNN? My mom finished from UNN. So she felt like it was going to be a good option for me. I applied to UNN. UNN, they have you have job prospects, you have better opportunities. Apply to UNN. And eventually, because initially before I applied to UNN, I actually did a pre-science in Unizik. And then I didn't get the admission there. And then I tried UNN, which I eventually got nursing, BSc nursing. And then after doing my BSc and all, it was time for me to go to do my youth service. And then I decided I was going to have my way this time around. So I was eventually I kept that my mom sort of has this sort of influence to say you can choose where you want to go to serve. I told my mom this time around I would like to go anywhere else that does not define where you want me to go. So so let me just I have to choose what I want for myself. Eventually, I went to Delta State and I did my NYSC in Delta State. Now, after my NYSC, I got job offers in Delta. But while I had already started the job, um, my dad kept saying, "Oh, why are you in Delta? Why don't you come back to Lagos? I mean, there are more job prospects. There are more. You can get better pay and job stability. You have better visibility. Why don't you come back to Lagos?" So, having looked at a lot of options, and I said, you know what, I would have more options actually coming back to Lagos. I decided to come back into Lagos. And then at the same time, I decided I was going to launch Las Gidinos. So initially, Las Gidinos was more of a platform on Facebook where I was doing a lot of health education. I was, teaching people on health options. So I was just doing that by the side. And then I did, of course, come back to Lagos. And the idea of Las Gidinos actually came because I was born in Lagos. I've lived in Lagos. I have the experience. I've had that background. My life has been Lagos basically. So I decided I was going to continue with that particular trend of being called Las Gidinos and just to carry on with that. And so the idea, of course, like I said, was launched on Facebook and also to reduce the incidence of teenage pregnancies in Lagos slums. Now, in Lagos, I had come to Lagos. So my the first job I got was in a private hospital. And I cannot forget that experience because as at the time when I got that job, I noticed that nurses, initially I hadn't really understood that, when it comes to nursing, we're not well paid. I think somehow I should have, prepared myself, but the first job I got was paying 40,000. And I kept telling myself, will I be earning 40,000 for the rest of my life? And it was a private hospital. And then I decided I was going to apply again and apply again to another hospital. And then I did that, applied to another hospital, and those ones only added about 10,000 more on top of the 40K. So I told myself, I can't continue earning this amount. It's too poor, and of course I was the first child, so there were the family responsibilities that came with being the first child. You have younger siblings, there are things you need to do with your life, things you need to do with money. So eventually I was now able to get another job. Now this third job that I got was from the influence of my mom. Again, she stepped in, she said, I can see you're not happy with your job. And then you have told me to hands off. But I feel like you need to have some sort of support for me to actually help. And then I said, okay, let's try it out because she works for Nigerian's armed forces. And so I was able to now get that job thanks to her. And then they started paying me with a starting salary of 130,000. So as at that time, I felt 130,000. Look at what was happening then in Nigeria, the economic status, 130,000 was a bit fair. So I decided to continue. In addition, because it was a government hospital, so it came with its benefits. They didn't just give me the money, but they gave me my own apartment. So it made things a lot easier. I didn't have to say, start transporting myself to come to work. I had my own apartment. I was living on my own. I also was able to navigate my way through. So the matron, who was a captain at that time, sort of like liked me. She actually saw that. She liked the fact that she felt like I was somebody who was quite brilliant and was able to do a lot of things. So she gave me the opportunity to actually choose my shifts. So I had that flexibility of being able to choose my shifts. And then because of the fact that it was a government and an army owned hospital, there were always officers coming around, people that you'd have to give health talks and you have to be there when they needed to have some sort of attention. So because of that likeness, I had the opportunity of actually meeting these people. So whenever there was going to be a health talk, she'll say, "Oh, Chichi, come and follow me. I want you to be the one to talk to them." Whenever there was like some sort of special arrangement for, say, if an officer wants to wants to have this special care for his mom or something, she always wanted to pick me. So it actually gave me an advantage there. And then at the same time, because I had been writing from Las Gidinos, a fellow colleague liked my writing and he reached out to me and said, we are trying to create Lead North Africa and we need somebody who is as intelligent and as diverse and somebody who actually is as vocal as you are on social media. So I would like to invite you to be one of the founding members. And I accepted it. So I became a founding member of Lead North Africa. And what this did for me was that it also exposed me, it gave me the advantage of actually getting to meet people, more celebrities. Because working as a founding member and then being the media director meant I had to be at every occasion. So I already said that I had the opportunity to choose my shift. So I had the opportunity to, go for programs with Lead North Africa as well. So I was able to go for national conferences. I traveled to Ghana. I traveled to Rwanda. I was traveling to other African countries. I was meeting important people, meeting celebrities. I was feeling very good with my career at that time. I kept telling myself, oh, Chichi, you're flying high. How many people know this person? How many people know that person? If you just call the director of nursing in Lagos, she knows who you are. If you just call this professor, they know you. So to me, I had a thriving career. I was achieving a lot at that time, so to say. So I felt like I was doing quite well. And based on, the standards of Nigeria, the economic standards of Nigeria at the time, and professional standards, I did not see the need to leave because, of course, I was supposedly doing well. Now, what happened? So I had a number of friends. So to me, because I was supposedly doing well, I had colleagues and classmates who were not doing so well. So most of them had already started to write NCLEX. And because they already had access to, they were because of the fact that of the fact that they were not really doing quite well with nursing. So they decided they were going to leave. And then when they left, they would come and say, "Oh my God, do you know how much I earn?" They'll be sending pictures of their pay slips. I had very good friends who were actually very honest with the quality of life they were living. So because they started leaving Nigeria, I told myself, I looked at what was happening. I told myself, would you not want to experience something like this? I even had my colleagues from the army hospital leaving. And I decided, you know what, okay, let me now look into this. And so that japa, that fever of traveling and all that, it now caught up to me. So I said, let me start doing my own personal research. Let me look at what are the career pathways for nurses? What are the career pathways for nurse educators? What are the things that actually, what if I'm coming to do nursing in the UK, in the US, in Canada, what are the prospects for me? And so I started to now draft my own personal vision board for my career. I also knew that I did not just want to come into the UK to just be a nurse, but I wanted to do something with my career. Like I initially said, I was already doing the health talks. I was already talking. I was already going out to give presentations. So I knew that if I was going to go into any country, I was going to teach. And I also needed to find out that pathway, understand what was involved if I was going to do this particular career. So I then also started having uncertainty. So the supposed army job with its benefits and all that, there started to become a lot of uncertainties there. News started going around to say they were going to change the commandant, and when they change the commandant, they were going to take away a lot of privileges from us and all that. And I was already living in that comfort zone, so I knew that I had to now start beginning to make alternative plans. So my first point of call was not the UK. Like I initially said, I had more friends who were writing NCLEX, so I decided to try the US. And so in the process of doing that, um, I discovered that, of course, I did a lot of, I actually wrote emails to Avant and then Passport USA and all those recruitment companies, but they said I wasn't eligible. Why? Because I worked in an army hospital with 50 patients, and they give this long criteria, and they say 150 patients, you have to have a very, or 500 patient. I can't remember the criteria now, but the criteria are so outrageous. And then you're like, I just work in Anyahami Hospital, we only have 50 patients. I only worked from 8 to 5, and I only did 5 days in a week, at most 7 days. I wasn't stressed. So why would I be stressing myself? So also with the Canadian pathway, I just tried. I saw that I couldn't pursue that because it was going to involve a lot of money. What I was in, like I said, I had my siblings to also think about. So I told myself, let me just focus on the UK. The UK looks a lot more easy for me too. And so I took my time as well to do the research on the UK. And I knew that there was going to be that progression for me. So eventually in July 2019, I passed my CBT. And after passing my CBT, I got a job in Nottingham Hospital, but turned out to be that the agency that was working with Nottingham Hospital, they were not legit, and there was a lot of problems. So I had to now start looking for other jobs, and so I got a job with Pool Hospital in October, and then I was quite happy because that meant I was coming to the UK. So then COVID-19 started. Now, COVID-19 would have made me not come into the UK. But I think one of the major things that was the driving force for me was the fact that I already made up my mind that I wanted to leave Nigeria. So in March, I took, I was told that it was the last flight. I don't know if that's true, but I was told it was the last flight. So in March 2020, just as they were closing the borders in Nigeria, I took the flight, and came into London. And then that meant, of course, I had left, Nigeria, left my comfort zone and left everything. So this is just a picture gallery of what I had been doing before I left. If you can see here, you can see me as a student nurse with one of my very good friends. And this is also some of the things I was already doing as last giddy nurse. I was already partnering with a number of agencies, going to communities. I had a team of nurses that were actually, they're actually working for me. And then for the funds we were raising, I was giving it to them. So I was already doing a lot. Like I said, I was really talking I was really giving health talks. The banner at the very bottom is one of the ones I gave. So I was really doing quite a lot. So basically, this is just like a summary of my life before I left Nigeria. Now I'm moving to the mid phase. And this is the life when I landed in London, which I started in the UK from March 2020 up until now. So, COVID. Now, COVID defined the start of my UK journey. I think I would say this is like I wrote out there. It is one of the most trying periods of my UK journey. Now, no one knew what was going to happen. There was a lot of uncertainty regarding COVID. We were not sure. I was taking that flight, and my family members were crying, and people are saying, "Oh, you're very insane. You don't know what's going to happen with COVID. You don't know if you're going to die. You're just entering the flight to go to the UK. How does that sound rational?" I was called all sorts. I was called insane. I was even told I was suicidal, that I just want to leave everything I knew in Nigeria with the wealth of with my supposed good career and just jump into the UK. I was told I was being spontaneous. I was called all sorts of things, basically. But like I initially said, I am somebody who's quite determined. If once I have set my mind to accomplish anything, I am very resolute and I will do that. I will accomplish it. I am somebody who knows that if I have something that I need to achieve that is very that is important to me, I will get that thing done. So that's why I knew I had made up my mind. So I was going to come to the UK. But then the full realization hits me. I realized I was alone. I came into pool. I didn't have any family members. I didn't know anybody. And I came into pool. I had left my parents, left my siblings, left everything that was familiar to me. And so I now fully realize, how far I was from home. And like I initially said, no one knew what was going to happen with COVID. There was a lot of uncertainties regarding COVID. And so I had that fear that I was going to die. In fact, I told myself that, you know what, just the most important thing is that whatever happens to you, just tell your mom, tell your parents, this is this, just do this for my siblings, do that. But at a point, it began to affect me psychologically because there's a lot you're having to deal with, especially when you're coming at that period where people are isolating. You're coming into a part of the UK where you don't have a lot of people who look like you, who are brown skinned, who you know can relate to who you are. And then with all of that, I felt so different. I felt out of place. And of course, pool where I landed is predominantly white. And like I initially said, people were isolating. So to make things a lot worse, or maybe as at that time to me, we were put on a temporary list by the NMC. What that meant was that from the time I came in March up until the time I wrote my OSCE, which was in October, I was supposed to be working as a band four, so to say. But NMC had sent an email to every trust to say you would have to conduct your own internal assessment for everyone coming in. And then based on that, you would now put them on a temporary list of band fives and pay them as band fives, pending till they wrote their OSCE. So initially it wasn't it sort of like that uncertainty. It did put me in this certain mode where I kept telling myself, are you sure you made the right decision? Are you sure you shouldn't have just waited to come in after all of this? And to make it not interesting anymore is that even despite the fact that we were put on that list, up until now, if you're going to have to, because I wrote my OSCE in October 2020, which was about 6 months after, whenever you're requesting to get say you want to do verification or something, it reflects from October, not from when you enter the UK. So all of those things, coupled with the fact that like I initially said, I was dealing with the isolation and it actually was affecting me. And then there was the fact that the mortality rates were increasing. You would come to work today and somebody you met the day before is gone. And I think I might now trace back to the first day I stepped into the ward. So the ward I was placed in, I was the only Black nurse on that ward. And what happened on that first day in the unit was that I felt, of course, I already felt isolated from what was happening in, my environment. And then I came into the ward and I felt out of place. And myself, being the very lively person, being the kind of person that I want to relate with people, I decided to try to blend in, I decided to get to know people and all that. But I noticed that they were not very forthcoming. So that's all of that was already putting a lot of strain on me mentally and physically. So I knew that I had to start to deal with these things one after the other. And so some other personal factors and professional factors was that I was struggling with the weather. So I'm coming from Nigeria that is very hot. In fact, I was working in, I maybe haven't mentioned it, but the hospital I was working in, I'm in hospital, is in Oshodi. And Oshodi is, and Lagos, and it's very hot. You know, the everything about the weather, the environment, everything was very different to what I was experiencing in the UK. And I did struggle a lot. I was always feeling cold, always wearing wearing my jacket, my neck scarf, my hoodie, my gloves. I will make sure I keep up, wear the boots, everything, because I struggle with the weather. And then, of course, there was the fact that I had to also learn the culture. You know, things like when you're being approached and somebody's trying to ask if you're or if you're fine, but they don't really. It's like a sort of greeting. You know, I had to get used to. In fact, I remember telling a colleague of mine a story about having to understand the difference between tea and hot chocolate and coffee. I know, of course, I knew what tea was, but because in my Nigerian nature, I knew that tea was Milo and milk in with hot water. So I did not know that that was hot chocolate and not tea. And until I had an experience where I had to go make a cup of tea for a patient, and I actually used, chocolate, and they were like, "Oh no, Chichi is not. That's not tea." So those things I had to learn them. Those are things I had to actually begin to learn as a person to know the differences. And then the mannerisms, having to actually be able to call somebody by their first names and not, we're used in Nigeria. Of course, we used to as in ma, sir, that's respect we give. But here it's a whole lot of difference. You're looking them, giving them the you're giving eye contact. If you don't give eye contact in the UK, of course, you know that you're being considered as disrespectful. But here, you have to maintain eye contact. I struggled with that a lot when I came. So I had to now deal with all of those and learn them and start readapting. Also, personally, I also had to become more proficient with a lot of things like having to use Google Maps. Of course, I was using it, but I became more proficient because you would have to learn your way around the UK. You're not, even if somebody decides to help you, you must be able to learn how to navigate your way through the roads and everything. So I had to become more proficient with that. I had to learn more about the transportation system, learn more about the bus times, the train times, also the fact that no one was going to help you if you did not know how to navigate through this. In fact, I had an experience with the boss myself. I remember because, okay, so in from the distance between Pool Hospital and Asta is a very trackable distance. But the first time I came, because I did not know how to get there and I was still struggling with Google Maps, I entered the bus. So I didn't know I was even supposed to pay because I just entered the bus. First time entering the bus, I entered the bus and I was excited, like, oh yes, see me, JJC, I've finally entered a bus in the UK. So I entered the bus. And then the bus driver didn't say anything to me. I told him I'm going to ask that. He just smiled and drove me to the subway and stopped me. And they said I had to just trek, walk up. And I was like, oh, have we reached? He said, no, don't worry, I should just walk there. I'll find where Asda is. And by the time I discovered that I wasn't supposed to have even entered the bus, it was just a very checkable piece. I was laughing at myself and I said, oh, okay. I just told myself, well, this is part of the things I have to learn, of course. But he was quite kind enough to actually show me what to do. So that was that. And of course, there was a tax system. I mean, we don't have an effective tax system in Nigeria, to be quite frank. We all know, how the tax system works in Nigeria, but in the UK, you have to know what those codes mean. When your salary comes in and you see that they have cut it, you're asking yourself, what happened? Then you start learning all those different codes. Oh, BR stands for this, non-com stands for this. Why did they collect this amount from me? I had to learn. I had to understand. In fact, I spent my time on HMRC. I had to understand what they all meant and why, how I could actually question certain things. And then there was the fact of renting in the UK, having to understand that when it came to renting, I needed to look out for a number of things. Also, how do I pay this when it comes to bills? You're renting, you're not just looking at having to get a house, you're looking at the council tax, you're looking at water bills, you're looking at a lot of things to consider, you're looking at the energy rating, all those things. Those are part of the things that I had to now understand. with coming into the UK. And of course, there was the pound to naira conversion. I think this happens to almost all of us when we come into the UK. And the next minute you're asking yourself, should I buy this thing? This is £1. If I calculate it in naira, it's nearly how much? Why will I spend this kind of amount to buy this small thing? And then you're already limiting yourself to actually spend the money because you know that I can't be spending this kind of amount for this thing if I was in Nigeria. So there was that initial struggle. I had to tell myself, I'm earning in pounds, I'm spending in pounds. Stop the naira conversion. You are living in the UK now, so you have to outgrow that. So, of course, that was something else I also had to manage and learn as well. I also had to learn to adapt to the UK healthcare system. I already initially mentioned that I struggle with calling my ward manager by her direct name, and also I was working for I didn't work for 12 and a half hours in Nigeria. I'd never worked for that long. So I had to come here. I also had to learn, how to adapt to that as well. I've also initially mentioned that I was the black nurse on my ward, so he did come with his unpleasant experiences and his good experiences. Now, one of the major things that I discovered was that um with the fact that I was the only one, it looked as if I had to work a lot harder to prove myself. So I was coming from Nigeria with my my experiences, with the fact that I'm black and all of that. And then I also knew that in order for me to show and prove myself, I had to, be more confident in myself, irrespective of whatever I was facing, irrespective of the fact that people kept questioning to say, "Oh, what does she know? Are you sure she even understands why she's doing what she's doing?" I had to keep being confident in myself, to tell myself, I know why I left the UK, so never forget that. And so, with the discrimination and the racism, like we all know, racism comes in different forms. And for me, it was more like sometimes they would want to avoid talking to me, or they would rather give me the part of the ward where I had to struggle with patients, even when I did not, I was still new. Or they would rather put me at the most difficult part of the ward so that they would say, oh, if she's done something wrong, they will now escalate it to the point that I had one experience where there was a student nurse who actually so I was working with her, and so she abandoned what we were doing and went to start talking with other white colleagues. And then I tried to get her attention to say, I need your help. And she just waved her hand to say, you can call somebody else. And even I escalated it then to the ward manager. Thankfully, she listened to me and she did call her and they addressed it. But that was an example of some of the experiences I had at that time. And then there was, of course, the fact that there was this unrealistic expectation. There was no mentorship, there was no support, there was an unrealistic expectation to say, oh, you need to quickly adapt. In fact, adapt if you resume today, you have to adapt immediately tomorrow. There was no they did not have that patience, or they did not have this, I don't know if you say it is a skill, but they just wanted you to immediately know what to do automatically, and it was quite a huge challenge for me because I'm leaving my country, leaving the health system in my country, coming to the UK. I need to learn the UK health system. I need to see that, the way things happen in Nigeria are different from what happens here. And then you expect me to adapt quickly, and then there was nobody there to actually hold my hand to say, oh, this is the pattern in which we do things. This is what you need to do. You need to sign your competencies. You need to have somebody on the wall to show you how to put the cannula the right way. You need to, there was nobody there to be very intentional to actually help me grow. So I had to deal with all of this, and what happened. So I'm going to talk about the picture there in a minute because that picture is one of my favorite pictures of my first year in the UK. But what I realized was that I was fully responsible for my growth. Fully responsible. I mean, I think it was a good thing that I realized that in time because it made me to stop having unnecessary expectations from people, so to say. I was able to realize that if I was going to make any headway in the UK, I had to be intentional about my growth. So I decided to start to book myself for all sorts. I sat down. In fact, the library in Full Hospital, I always sat down in that library to go through the internet. I was very, very thorough. And so that was how I booked myself different skills, different trainings. I decided to ask myself, Chidinmma, why did you come into the UK in the first place? What do you enjoy doing? I already said I had a vision board. So what have you put on that vision board that you haven't achieved, and why are you not achieving it? So I took myself back to the drawing board, and then I decided, you know what, I was going to review what I enjoy doing. What do I enjoy doing? I enjoy teaching. It was something that I had done, something I was very passionate about. So go back to the drawing board and review and begin to look out for opportunities for practice education. So I went back to look at that, like I initially said, because I knew I had to be intentional. And then one thing again that helped me was that I joined a group on WhatsApp. It was actually by chance. I actually met somebody talking about it on Twitter, and then I asked him, "Oh, please, can I join? I've been looking for a network of Nigerian nurses." So already, because of COVID and all that, I didn't know of any existing Nigerian nurses group. So when I saw that opportunity, I grabbed it and I said, "Okay, let us join." So that's me and myself, of course, and I joined the WhatsApp group on in for Nigerian nurses. And then I started seeing people that were achieving, people that were doing a lot, band six, band sevens, talking about their experiences, how they did what they did, and what I did, of course, was to start to search for people that were in education. So I found about two people and I started to ask them questions to say, what do I do? How do I take the next step? This is what I want to, this is my career focus, my career pathway. This is what I want to do. So how do I take the step? So that was what helped me. I asked questions, how do I become a band six, of course, but basically, how do I become a practice educator? And then luckily enough, like I said, I was always on the internet. I spent a lot of time in the library. I saw the advert for the OSCE practice educator early, but because I knew that I wanted to be certain I was going to fill the job descriptions on it, I took my time to still ask these people to say, this is what this ad says. What do I do? What do I do? And then I applied for it. And it was quite interesting, when I was told that I got the role as a practice educator in Pool. And to be quite frank with you, that was like a silver lining for me because, after everything, I finally achieved what I'd always wanted to achieve. So yeah, back to the picture. So that picture, like I said, is a very like I said, I was always feeling cold. So you can see me, I have my jacket, my scarf, my hand glove, my cap, always feeling cold to the point that I kept telling myself, this cold you always feel. Are you sure? Are you sure you're actually fine? But that was it, really. That was how I was always looking. So now I became the first Black practice educator in full. And this happened in November 2021. And then, of course, my role ended in December 2022. So that picture, of course, is a picture I took of myself doing one of my OSCE sessions. Um, because I because I became a practice educator, I'm going to explain what my role involved, and I'm also going to talk about what's happened, how the process was, and how I was able to actually eventually become a practice educator. So from Health Education England, a practice educator is a qualified professional who supports, supervises, and assesses learners in practice setting, sorry. So basically, what this means is that as a practice educator, you are somebody who is very passionate about supporting learners. And it is in the practice setting because we have got educators, we've got people who are actually not in practice setting, say university lecturers or health advisors, but for a practice educator, this is in the clinical setting. Now, what we do, or what I was doing then, was to ensure that students and trainees will develop those necessary skills and their competencies. So, what they need for their professions or to grow in their career to ensure that those necessary competencies are actually achieved. And so that's why, as a practice educator, I was in a lot of supervision, I was in a lot of assessment, having to also do a lot of feedback and mentorship. And basically, while supervising, I was ensuring that, you could have students who, because mine was strictly OSCE. And what I did during my time was that I was ensuring that I provided the guidance, I provided the support. I To become a practice educator, you also need to be somebody who is very voracious for learning. You also need to be a lifelong learner, and you are someone who needs to be passionate about standardizing practice. So you are a role model. You are somebody people look up to. And so, in order for you to even be able to supervise or assess or support, you need to know what you're doing. So, like I said, I was providing guidance and support to learners. I was evaluating their performances and also, having to look at how far they've come, have they progressed with the skill, what were the needs, what were the what were the gaps in their learning, how do I what interventions can I do, what were the different learning styles of my students, how can I use those learning styles to improve their knowledge. And I also was part of the team, with developing curricula, looking at the NMC OSCE standards, because we had the Future NHS collaboration platform. And so we also had to do videos, things that would actually help support every international nurse to understand how to do excellently well in OSCE. And like I also said, feedback, mentorship, having to be there to actually share my personal experiences and my professional growth with the students so that they could relate to know that irrespective of how challenging it seemed at that time, they were able to navigate through and actually become extremely successful. So I've also written as a bonus as well the things that one will need to have in order to become a practice educator. Like I initially said, you need to be passionate about standardization and quality improvement. Very important because it's not just about teaching; it's more of being someone who is very passionate about. Oh, sorry, I think my slide was up. Oh yeah, there you go. So who is quite passionate about quality improvement? Okay, and also as a practice educator, evidence-based practice and continuous self-improvement are things that you would need to be dedicated to, as well as teaching others, seeing others learn, seeing them grow, and being eager to always, ensure that new information and skills are passed the right way. And of course, there is the fact that when it comes to being a practice educator, you need a lot of patience. So it's one thing to be eager to want to show or support learning. It's another thing to actually have the capacity to do that. So with as we all know, we are all human beings, and when it comes to learning, it takes time for you. It takes people. Some people, yeah, they're very fast learners. For some people, they're very slow learners. And if you're not patient enough to be able to understand the different learning styles of your students, you will get easily irritable, or easily frustrated to say, why isn't this person picking as quickly as I hope to? So you must be able to be patient and have a wide range of tolerance to be able to understand your learners and the different phases, the different how fast one can be, how slow one can be, the rate at which they learn, and then inculcate that to ensure that everyone comes to the point of understanding what you're trying to pass across. And also to volunteer and shadow another practice educator. Very important because I noticed that from the period when I became a practice educator and people kept asking me, "Oh, Chichi, how did you get there? What did you do? How did you become a practice educator?" I tell them, just you need to dedicate your time and just shadow one. Why? It's very easy to be moved by the glamour of a role, but it is much more necessary to actually understand what that role is all about. And you might not be able to understand until you actually volunteer for that particular role. It will give you an insight. It will give you a full understanding of what the role is actually involved, or what is involved with the role, or what the role is all about. So shadow one, volunteer, and see what is involved with practice education. And of course, you have to be someone who must be very intentional, involved in clinical governance, involved in audits, and of course, you're going to be liaising with ward managers. If you're not good with communication, if you're not somebody who knows how to navigate through offices, who knows how to talk to people of authority, you will struggle, and because you'll be working with matrons, you having to identify things. Say there are learning gaps. Say, for example, there is a learning gap. Say maybe there are more pressure ulcers in a particular ward. You have to be able to identify what those gaps are, what those needs are, and then hinge on them to teach the staff members or to teach anybody. Because if you don't know how to be able to work with these people, you won't be able to identify these needs. You have to also be quite knowledgeable on the organization, or knowledgeable, invest your time on what the NMC says about health education, what NHS English is about health education. Have a wealth of knowledge on all of this. So now, like I also said, I have to come back to what I looked at before I became a practice educator. So what I noticed was that I had wonderful practice educators, all right, but I noticed that I needed to see or be that someone that could relate to the experiences I've had with everything that had passed through, with everything that had happened to me. I needed to have somebody that I could actually walk into the room to say, oh, yes, when I see someone who's an internationally educated nurse, this person has been, or at least has a fair knowledge of where I'm coming from. So that was also what motivated me as well to apply for the role, because I needed to be that person. If I couldn't see the person, I needed to be the person that any international educated nurse would walk into the class and say, oh wow, she's black, she's from the BIM community, she's this. I can actually relate to her with what I've been through. I've left my country, left my family, left my home. I've been through, my wealth of experience back home in my country. I was a senior nurse. I worked as this, I worked as that. Now I'm having to leave everything and come to the UK and integrate into the system. And people are looking at me like I don't know what I'm doing. So I needed to, at least to be the person, because of course, it was something that I needed to fill the role, the shoes, to say, yes, I relate to what you've been through as an internationally educated nurse. So that was also what motivated me. And then I asked a lot of questions. I think one of the things that really helped me when I was doing my interview was that the people I asked questions already knew me, because I was always asking them questions. I kept saying, so how did you get this role? What is involved? What can I do? So I spent time making sure that I got information from them. And then I did my research. Um, I already talked about the internet. I went on YouTube. I went on LinkedIn. I looked for practice educators on LinkedIn, and I kept sending them messages to say, so how did you become this? What do I need to do? What courses do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? I spent a lot of time doing my research, and I already had looked at practice educators. So I went on NHS jobs, went on track jobs, and then I looked at the job descriptions for practice educators. And I also looked at the essential criteria. So I told myself, if I was going to actually be able to do all of this, I needed to have an idea of what I was being expected to do. So I had to take my time to understand what the role was going to expect me to do. And also, what are the prospects? What are the projections of this role? How can I grow? And I spent my time metabolizing the curriculum. I took time to open NMC OSCE, looked at went to NMC portal, looked at what the expectations were. If I'm going to be teaching OSCE, what do I want my students, how do I want my students to achieve and pass their OSCE successfully? I had to understand what was the content, what was NMC looking out for, what was the structure, also what were the policies that I needed to be familiar with to be able to effectively teach students so that, I wouldn't have to struggle when I enter the classroom and then somebody asks me a question and I'm blank. So it was something I needed to spend my time with to fully understand what I was going into. And as well as I also joined so there was a group which I actually joined after I got the job. But that group also helped me to be updated with information. I had a lot of push email notifications to get me updated with what was changing. And so that helped me as well. Now, as a practice educator. So, like I already said, I did a lot of research before becoming one. My trainings and my updates, and being somebody who is very passionate about continuous professional development, I kept on developing myself. So I ensured that that was one of the major things because, like I already said, you have to be a lifelong learner. Now, so as a practice educator, I was able to motivate international educated nurses. I think I'll just stick to IENs for now. I was able to motivate them, to mentor them, support them. When somebody enters the room and they see you and they're like, oh, wow, she's a Nigerian. And then they are inspired to actually take up more roles. So initially, there was that initial hesitation to actually take up more leadership because some people were like, oh, I don't think they will accept me. If I try, I might not get the role. They felt like they would not be able to do a lot more for themselves. But coming in and seeing that the person who is actually training you is, coming from Nigeria, it motivated a lot of people and they were able to take more roles, become band sixes, go far, do quite a lot, and that was one of the things that like I initially said I was looking for, and I was happy I was able to achieve that. I also became a resource person for any IEN that was interested in practice education. So, even like I already said, I had a lot of people who came to me to say, Chichi, I want to become a practice educator. What do I do? And I'll sit to you, then I'll tell you, oh, so the first thing you need to be sure of is that you're ready to be an ambassador for quality improvement, standardization, and then you will also have to spend time to understand what the role involves. So I worked with the education team, of course, and then we developed OSCE curricula and we developed a lot of trainings for IENs. And I personally created a feedback form. So I discovered that we were training, we were teaching, but we were not able to evaluate how effective our methods are or the styles we are using were, rather. So I decided, I spoke to the education lead then to say, we need to be able to evaluate what we're doing. Are we doing well? Do we need to improve on what we're doing? Are there steps we need to take? So I was able to develop that feedback form to evaluate the effectiveness. And in the process of doing that, I registered for the Florence Nightingale Foundation International Nurses and Midwives Program. And I was able to get that training as a practice educator. And also, because I became a practice educator, I was invited to join a group of nurses, basically Nigerian nurses in the UK. They invited me. They said, oh, I'm not sure how they got my information anyway, but they said they wanted me to establish a scholarship board, sorry, for indigent nurses in Nigeria. And I accepted, because of course I was already mentoring and coaching IN. So I knew it was very important for me to continue this even in Nigeria. So I joined the scholarship board and I also received a Sunrise Hero Award. That was because of the fact that I was, like I already said, somehow news got to them and they said they had heard about me and they were very happy with what I was doing and they wanted to award me for contributing to the growth of nurses. So that was how I got the award. And I was asked to write my story in a book. I was asked to draft, I was part of the people that they asked to draft my story, and it's published on Amazon. The book is called Rising at Sunrise. And so they featured my story in that book on Amazon. So, like I initially said, my contract, I was on a secondment. So my contract lasted from November 2021 up until December 2022. So after that particular period, I knew that I wanted to, of course, I always wanted to continue being a practice educator. And then I applied to renew my contract. At that time, I was told that there was no funding for another practice educator. So I had to, tell myself, you know what, Chichi, you have done your bit in pool. You have tried quite well. So now it's time for you to spread your tentacles. It's time for you to move away from pool and look for more roles. And so I personally I needed to actually now relocate from Poole. So I told myself, let me start applying to different roles as an OSCE practice educator. Let me start looking for other opportunities. And then I started applying to different roles. At that point, I was not successful. And the ones I got, there were either issues with sponsorship or visa. So I just told myself, okay, of course, I wasn't giving up. I was going to keep trying. And then along the line, I had a health condition. So that health condition made me so sick. It was something I wasn't expecting to happen to me at that time, but it made me so sick to the point that I was in hospital back to back to back. So, and they kept saying, "Oh, you need to take it easy." I was telling myself, "What am I really doing that is, causing all of this?" Eventually, it was now affecting me mentally. So, and then when I was sitting for interviews and I was sitting to, I was applying and going for interviews, I wasn't doing well. I personally knew because I was doing a lot of self-reflection and reevaluating myself. And I was always asking for feedback, of course, and I wasn't performing as well. So also I started having personal relationship issues. There are quite a lot of things that you of course when you are in that state where you're under a lot, things are happening to you, and then you're under a lot of mental stress and mental pressure, it starts to affect you. So it was affecting my performance. So I told myself to hold on for now. Let me deal with my health condition. Let me deal with all of the other factors that are affecting me and resolve them. And so at the point of recovery, resolving, I had to go back to re-strategize. And I had to tell myself, okay, do I want to just be OSCE? I had to reevaluate my career goals. I asked myself, do I want to just do OSCE? I realized that I did not just want to be tagged or continue in OSCE. I wanted to diversify my clinical skills. I needed to learn a lot more so that when I apply for more roles, I don't have to streamline myself to just OSCE practice education. I can use OSCE, all right, if I choose to, but I needed to have that diversification so that it would help me to actually have more opportunities for more roles. And so I decided to diversify my clinical skills. So already, back in Nigeria, I was working on a medical surgical ward. While I was in the secondment, I was working on a surgical ward as well as being an OSCE practice educator. So I already had surgical skills. So I said, okay, I also looked at the prospects of me because I knew that when it comes to surgery and surgical skills, that there was a wide range of varieties, urology, colorectal, maxillofacial, quite a wealth of them. So I decided I was going to now move into surgical, and of course merge that with my skills as a practice educator, and of course the fact that I've also been a leader, my leadership qualities, and then apply for roles. And so at that point, I started applying for roles, and I got a job now as a clinical sister in Coventry. Now, as a clinical sister. So I started this role just quite recently. It was in April 2024. And so far, it has been quite amazing, I must confess. It has been really eye-opening. I think, the decision I made to diversify my clinical skills was a very brilliant one because I have gained more in the process of actually coming into you know, in clinical practice now to see that there was quite a lot more that I needed to learn. And so at this point, what I do is to provide clinical support. And also, I am still mentoring my team members. I'm still mentoring I'm still mentoring band five nurses, of course, HCAs, nursing associates. We're still working together to ensuring that we improve and achieve their career goals. And also, I'm still providing education to team members as well. And this has actually helped team members on my team to actually become a lot better when it comes to their skills and their competences. Also, there is a project that I'm currently running. So for my team, we're a very diverse team. And one of the things I needed to do was to ensure that we celebrate that, as well as ensuring that with equality, diversity, and inclusion, that we always demonstrated as a team that we recognize everyone's identity, and at the same time celebrated that identity, celebrated that uniqueness, and have that help us bond better. So basically, the Where in the World project, like I said, is still ongoing. What it does is that it highlights the different countries that every team member is from. And then based on the different countries, we celebrate, okay, let's say, for example, someone is from India, and we talk about the culture in India, the dance, what is common, what you can commonly find, your food. And that sort of like brings the excitement. It brings that sense of joy, seeing that somebody is actually interested in getting to know their culture. So we've been doing it so far. We got the map of the world and did all of that, and everybody's so excited. And we're like, oh my God, they never thought it could be so much fun getting to learn about each other. So that is a project that is currently ongoing. And also, I have been a part of, so also we just recently launched an app. And so I have been made in charge of actually doing a lot of audits regarding that app, and also to get the feedback from people who are using it, to see how well they are with using the app, also to see if it's actually improving the quality of service we're providing, if it's actually making patient care a lot better. And so that has been part of the things I have started to do as well as a clinical system. And at the same time, I'm also initiating another QI project. And this I'm doing in conjunction with the Innovation Hub here in Coventry, because like I said, I'm looking at having to improve the quality of care that we have for the patient, and also to improve our working conditions as a team. And so this is why this QI project is something that I'm also looking at helping to do all of that. And we're also trying to see how can we improve the waiting times, how can we improve the outcomes for patients, how can we reduce the stress from the team. So this are a couple of things that I am doing so far as a clinical system. So now, current phase. What's next for me? In terms of my career, um, I still will go back into practice education. Like I also said, it's not, I haven't, I am still in the process of actually becoming a practice educator. But for now, I have a goal of becoming a learning and development lead by January 2025. So for me, I'm already volunteering and shadowing someone on my ward who is actually a practice educator. And already I am aware that there are going to be more opportunities for that. So definitely once I have gotten back into practice education, my goal is to become a learning and development lead. And for me, why this is very important as well is that I also need to ensure that while becoming a lead, I do not also miss the fact that I enjoy lecturing. So I'm going to be combining both my role as a practice educator and working in the university as well, so that I can have a university joint appointment job. So these are the things I am going to be achieving, of course, with time. And then also, I also be looking at continuously coaching nurses, continuously mentoring nurses, while being a development lead. And then I have, with writing, I recently just published an article on PsychReg. Now, that article was actually relate to my experiences, what I have, my journey so far, what I have achieved, what I hope to achieve, how I started, how I became a UKRN. So that article was just published, I think that was early this month. However, I have now become a regular contributor. So basically, I'll be writing a lot more about my experiences, about what it means to be an IEN. And also, I will be spreading my tentacles. I will be moving into writing for nursing time. So at the moment, I have sent the draft already. We are looking at publishing that, hopefully, but that is something that I will be doing as well with my writing. And then, of course, for self-development, I've also been interested in clinical research. So it's also part of the things that I do or part of the things I was doing as a practice educator, and part of the things I will still be doing even as a clinical sister. And so I will be obtaining my master's degree in healthcare and leadership in University of Hull by 2025. And also, I would also be obtaining a PhD. I've put the target as 2028, but I'm going to spread it to 2029, But that, of course, is something that I'm looking to achieve then. And I'll also be harnessing my interest. So I have quite a lot of interests, but what I do with my interest is that I merge them. I put them all into one to actually use them efficiently. So I've also got interest in digital health. Like I already mentioned, I work as a media director for Lead Nurse Africa. So I already have some exposure, some experience to digital health. And so I will as well be using that interest as well. I already signed up for a couple of trainings, just for about 4 months for now, on AI and data analysis. And then subsequently, I hope to use that, use my knowledge on in digital health, teach also, because I also discovered that when it comes to technology, having to understand, why we need to implement IT and technology into health, a lot of people struggle with it. And we cannot run away from this because everything we have is now digitalized. We're becoming more of a technological advanced world. So it's very important to ensure that I can actually teach with my wealth of experience, and while of course building my career, building my interest in digital health and becoming more proficient in it. And of course, I already have been doing Last Giddy Nurse. So Last Giddy Nurse now is, I have become quite active with my blogging. I spend my time actually um, exploring my city at the moment, also looking at innovations in digital health, looking at innovations in teaching, looking at all those things, and I blog about them. And also, Last Giddy Nurse, sorry, is still conducting health outreaches in Nigeria. And so that's one of the things I will keep doing as well. As well as, of course, like I already mentioned, I am in a scholarship board, so I will continue to still fund Nigerian nurses through school. So, what are the reflections from my journey? What are the things that I've learned, or what are the things I would like to talk about from my journey? The first thing, of course, is to know who you are. So quite a lot of people uh do this follow. They want to follow what somebody else is doing or have that follow trend. There's this herd mentality. You want to keep following what another person is doing because you feel, oh, this is bringing in a lot of money, without actually knowing who you are. What are you passionate about? What defines you? What are your skills? Like, what are the things that if you're sleeping and somebody wakes you up today to say, if I ask you if I want to give you 10 million now, what can you do right now? What exactly drives you? So you need to know who you are. Avoid the herd mentality. Avoid being pressured into a role because of competition, because of what people are saying. Just know who you are and what you can do. It is your sole responsibility to develop you. No, yes, someone, maybe you might be quite lucky to have somebody that'll be willing to ask about you, that'll be willing to say, oh, what have you done so far? How have you achieved this and that? Great. But it is still your sole responsibility to develop you because you alone know yourself. So Always invest in yourself. Nothing is too much to invest in yourself. Quite, I have met people from my from from being a practice educator, of course, who are quite scared of wanting to pay for certain courses because they feel it is too expensive. And I understand coming from that angle about the cost. But when you think of the benefits, or when you think of what that course will, or where it will place you tomorrow, nothing is, to me, nothing is too much for you to invest. So if you can find alternatives or ways in which you can get finance, great. But always keep investing in yourself because it is that portfolio that you build that will actually announce you. It is that that development you've given to yourself that will announce you to others. So keep investing in yourself and never take your health for granted. I think this was one of the things I did not initially consider before I became before I fell sick. But it is very important because if you're not healthy, you can't achieve the things you hope to achieve. So never take your health for granted, especially your mental health. Considering the fact that are living in the UK, we're not living in Nigeria, for example, for those of us that are in the UK, and you know that it is very easy for you to get isolated. It's very easy for you to, with the kind of environment we are in, we don't really have so many family members around. It's very easy for you to derail mentally if you don't always engage with people, come out, talk to people. So never take it for granted. Even when you feel you're tough or you're resilient, never take it for granted. Always have a strong support system. At least have friends, get to know people, get to meet people, have that support system, have family, have people that you can always go around to. Go to church if you're a Christian, if you're not, if you hang out in the bar or whatever works for you. Just ensure that you have a support system that you've built and is very strong. And the journey will not always be rosy. I mean, take for example, mine was not always rosy. I'm quite happy that I am where I am today, but from what I have, how I've actually narrated my journey, it will not always be rosy. But the most important thing is what is driving you? How determined are you mentally to actually say, I'm going to get up again, I'm going to try again, I'm going to rise up again? Are you focused enough to actually, despite what is trying to pin you down or drag you down, to say, I'm going to get up again, to keep trying? So just, you have to build mental resilience to be able to rise up each time. Because sometimes when you're even doing things and it's looking as if you're not even making any progress, it's looking as if you're stagnant. Everyone seems to be flying high, but you're still there. You must build resilience because it is what will keep you even in your low times. Also, be very strategic. Strategy is one of the things that will help you to achieve quite a lot in a very short time frame. Be very strategic, be very focused. Also, be intentional. I think I've talked about resilience a lot, but be consistent. One other thing now that has also helped me as well is having accountability partners. Now, I decided that I was going to have people that were going to check up on me to see if the things I said I was going to do, I'm actually doing them. Because it's easy for me to say, oh, I want to be this, I want to be development lead, I want to do digital health, I want to do that. It's easy for me to say it and draft a wonderful, beautiful, well-structured plan. In the end, 1 year will go and I haven't done anything. But if I share my goals with someone, if I share my vision with someone, if I have somebody that actually asking me, oh yeah, Chichi, you said you're going to do this in 3 months. Have you done it? What have you done about it? What have you met? What are you doing? Have you gone for this training? Have you gone to volunteer? So that is why it has been helping me thus far. Also have a growth tribe. A growth tribe are people who together you've all agreed are going to grow as it's as it might just be people run it might just be people you met in a conference or in a seminar, but or your colleagues or people you can just say, okay, let's decide together you're going to grow, so that if one person is struggling, we can step in to say, how can we help? What do you need help with? how can we support, that actually they'll actually be the ones to keep helping you, to keep pushing forward, to keep growing. And that is also something that is very important. Do I have a growth tribe? I do have a growth tribe. They're the ones that actually always on my neck to say, oh, Chichi, what have you done so far? How have you grown? So yes, it's very important. And then set smart goals. For most, I'm hoping that most of us know what smart means. I'm going to still say it's specific, measurable, achievable. It depends on some people will rather go with achievable, realistic, and then time bound goals and specific. For example, what am I going to do with nursing in the next 3 months? Okay, I want to say, let's say, for example, I want to become a band six in the next 3 months. So, how do I become a band six in the next 3 months? Do I need to go for this training? Do I need to look for somebody who is already band six in the role I want to go in? How do I find them? Do I go on LinkedIn? Do I go on YouTube? Do I go on the intranet? Do I go on the NHS leadership site? What do I do? So you need to be specific. How do I measure what I have achieved? I have become a band six. Is this something I can actually achieve within 3 months? Or am I just being vague with my talk? Is it realistic? So you have to set those goals so that it helps you to actually grow. Professional support. You need support, whether it is professional, but you need support. Writing for PsychReg, for example, was because of the professional support I got. I wouldn't have had access to PsychReg if I did not have the kind of professional support I have. And one thing that professional support does is that it narrows. So if, say, for example, you are going to struggle to get a particular role, say it was going to take you, say, 6 months to get that role, if you have support, in Nigeria we call it who knows somebody, I know somebody who knows who and all that. Good. So if you have that support, that distance or that time or that headache or that stress you would have passed through, it will become so easy. And that's why, you have a lot of associations, you have unions, you have groups. They exist for that reason. They exist to actually make you grow faster than you would ever done by yourself. So join groups. There are quite a lot of them exist. I've listed a few there. RCN, I'm in RCN, I'm in NNCA UK, joined the BAME network. Shuri network is for those interested in digital health. There are a lot of them. Okay, so when you join these networks, you build the rapport, you build the connections, you actually, you network with people, and you're able to also build a board of advisors. A board of advisors are people that you can run to say in different spheres of life. You can run to say, okay, I have, let's say, for example, I'm going to use myself as an example. So I have somebody in finance, someone in nursing, someone in business, finance business, in nursing. I have somebody in education. So these are people who are doing exceptionally well, or people who I see are where I want to go. So I have them as my personal board of advisors. So when I am running into any problem or I want to do something, I don't even have to say, but when I want to do something, when I've seen something, I go to them to say, so I saw this and that. How can what can I do? Is this the right way to what do you suggest? What do you advise? How can I go about this? And they will download everything. So you need to have your personal board of advisors for everything you need to achieve, people who are doing what you want to do and doing it exceptionally well. And please use them effectively. There's a reason why, these board of advisors and these support groups and associations and unions exist. Use them effectively. Also, attend trainings, conferences, seminars, meetings. I can't count personally. I keep telling myself, I tell myself I'm proud of you because I will see a training as it's past and seeing a training for the fact it is relevant to what I want to do. I'm going for it. I remember one of the very trainings I had in London. Then it wasn't easy for me to attend it because of the way my rota was structured. But I told myself, I will go for this training and I will get what I'm looking for. And I pushed myself, in fact, to the point that I started looking for people to actually cover my shift because the training was more important to me. I wasn't going to give myself the excuse of saying, oh, I'm on nights, I'm doing this, therefore I won't go for that training. But the fact that training was relevant to what I was looking for, I was ready to look for ways to go around it. And did I complete the training? I did. It was in London. I made sure that I completed the training. I did, of course, apply for study leave, but I saw the training quite late, so I wasn't granted that leave. But I told myself I was going to go for it. I went for the training. I met another individual now that is one of my professional advisors. In fact, the professor who was instrumental to me publishing on PsychReg, that was where I met him. So if I hadn't gone for this, I'm not sure I would have had the opportunity to actually have that publication. So always go for conferences, go for seminars, go for meetings. Sure, go for what parties. Is in what parties that they decide what happens. You will go for a what party, you see your colleagues, warming up to your ward leader and all that. That is where, should start getting people that giving you very small tips to say, oh, this is going to happen very soon. This is going, and you have an idea. So if you're somebody that you don't like to network with people, you don't like to sell yourself, you don't like to be with people, you will struggle. And when you're there, you also need to sell yourself. So that's why you need to know who you are. You cannot sell if you don't know what your brand is or who you are, you can't sell yourself. It will be very difficult because you don't even know what to sell. So sell yourself, show up, sell yourself, sell your brand, and build your portfolio. Let people know that you're going to be there for them. Let people know that you're going to support them. Let people know that you're going to volunteer to work with them. Let people know that you are there. So you must be very intentional about selling yourself. And when it comes to whatever role you want to take up, it's like I already said, you have to gain insights. So shadow, volunteer, always find there are so many people, doing what you want to do. You just need to be able to be diligent enough to actually find these people and shadow and volunteer. And my my personal slogan is to make experience my priority first. Why? Because if I build a wealth of experience as an individual and I am able to sell myself, I will get a job that will pay me 10 times what I was thinking if salary was coming first. I don't know if I'm clear enough, but um experience is you should make it build a wealth of experience, build it, build yourself, build your portfolio, so that by the time you now start seeing other opportunities that will pay you exceedingly well, you have built that portfolio for yourself, and people will be willing to pay you exceptionally beyond your outer you'll be so surprised by what people are willing to pay because you have built your experience. And then you need to think long term, always think long term, always ensure that, like I already said, you need to find people that are doing what you want, find people that are already in the positions you want to be, and work with them. Even if you can't work with them, try to get hands-on experience, because it's better if you one of the things that I also observed with roles here is that they are more focused on experience. Even if you have a lot of paper certificates, even if you have a master's, they really want to be sure that you have got that hands-on experience and you can actually handle the job. I remember when I was sitting for mine as a practice educator, they asked me if I had a experience of teaching. I told them I've taught as a nurse. I mean, as nurses, we are nurse educators. So I have taught as a nurse. I've taught in I never had any teaching experience. That was the first time. But I had to, of course, think of my experience as a student nurse. Told them I taught as a nurse. I've been teaching in communities. When we go for community talks, I've been doing that. Had to, oh, sorry, I did mention I did health talks in Africa, but I hadn't had like a um formal teaching opportunity, so to say. So I had to use the health talks I had done already as a nurse to buttress my viability, and to say yes, indeed I can handle this job. And that was one of the things that actually sold me to them. So Also, take bank shifts. If you're, like I already said, you need to find how to work with with people that are doing what you want to do. Go to that department, take a bank shift. Don't underestimate the importance of little things. If I hadn't, you know, I'm going to use now my current role. Before I actually resumed here in Coventry, I actually took bank shifts in the surgical unit. I already had a lot of experience, all right, but I went to the actual surgical assessment unit and I took bank shifts in pool. So I already spent my time to refresh my memory, to now understand what I was going to expect. And that helped me a lot when I got here. Okay. So still research and read, always increase your insight and be very curious and passionate. I've already talked about looking at the job description for the roles and also what the essential criteria are. So it is very important for you to always look at the job descriptions and go and prepare yourself for those things that they need and make sure that you at least you get those things. Okay. I have also written here a couple of links. So this is to build your leadership and people skills. For example, you can go to academies like NHS Leadership, there is Health Education England, there's Florence Nightingale Foundation, there's your FNF Academy. There are quite a lot of them. So this would also help you to meet people, to network and meet people that are actually doing exceptionally well, and it will also give you that added advantage as well. Now, be the solution. Why is this important? So, even as an individual, even when you're looking to get into a role, you need to be able to identify gaps where you are. So, take for example, you want to grow to say, I want to grow to become a band seven, band eight, and I haven't been able to identify areas for quality improvement needs. I haven't been able to take my time to find out how to get solutions to these. I haven't been able to tell myself to prove myself that I am an invaluable asset to the team. It will be by the time I am applying for the role in my unit, they will say, what has she really done? She's just been there, just been coming to work, just been doing the routine thing. So be the solution. Take your time, go through things, go through what's happening around you and identify the gaps and look at what needs to be sorted. Also, you have to be very knowledgeable about the law. Know what the law says, know what your policies in your organization are, what are the procedures, what are the routines, be knowledgeable. Quite a lot of people don't like to read. I'm not saying this from I'm actually like I'm talking from the experience I've actually had. You get to see people and they are complaining about maybe say for example annual leave they don't know about, and I'm asking you, have you read your trust policy? Do you know what the policy says on this? So please um have knowledge about that. Also, you need to get notice. I already said it, you sell yourself, request to go for quality improvement meetings, request to go for clinical audit meetings, request to go for governance meetings, budget and request to go for these meetings. They happen every time. And by the time you're there, you now have an understanding of what you need to do, how you can be relevant, and how you can actually contribute intelligently, how you can actually be the solution, to the needs of the organization. Okay, so um this is very important. The fact that you must also know that you will make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. You will make mistakes. So know that you have to be, you're human. You're not, even robots are not even perfect. So be kind to yourself. When you make mistakes, own them. You have made the mistake. It has happened. Learn from it. Okay, when you've learned from it, once you've actually learned from those mistakes, now begin to think about how can you resolve them, how can you reflect on them, how can you actually now build a system to ensure that you don't repeat those mistakes. Also, you have to be a lifelong learner. Everything that you're going to be doing, you must be somebody who is open to learning. Be open to learning, be open to embracing new information, things that will change your ideologies, things that will change your viewpoint, because this is the only way you would actually be able to develop and be able to sit in teams to be able to contribute intelligently. Also, have a work-life balance. I personally, I think I must have missed saying that I like to travel. I'm somebody who is quite intentional about having a very good work-life balance. So always travel, have that quality family time, explore, learn a new hobby, engage in the beauties of life, but have that work-life balance. So, if anyone is interested in wanting to reach out to me, that's my email address. Sam already has that. But basically, if there's anything at all you would like to ask me, please endeavor to reach out. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Chichi, for that detailed experience of yours, all the way from Nigeria to where you are now in the UK. It's quite detailed, a lot of advice for people to actually take in. I'm not sure if anybody would have any question to add, because I think you did justice to this actually. But I will give some few minutes if anybody would like to ask any question.
Okay.
I really like the advice you gave, the learnings from your experience. Actually, it's cut across all aspects of life, talking about how you would even handle racism, how you would build your career, be intentional about your growth,
Exactly.
have mentors around you, have people to check up on you, and it's actually delightful. I would really like to thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your story. And I've gone through
You're
your
welcome.
publication, and it's quite interesting.
Thank
And
you.
wishing you the best of luck. I think we
Thank you
have
very
from phone
much.
care. What an amazing journey. Thank you so much, Chidinmma, for sharing. I'm truly inspired. Thank you very much.
You're
And
welcome.
thanks for inspiring us today. Those on YouTube, let me quickly check if anybody have any question. If you do have a question, please just type it. I could read it out from here. All right. Thank you very much, Chidinmma. Amazing thoughts. Thanks for sharing.
Oh,
And
you're welcome.
please, I would like to remind you all, if you've not subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please do so. We'll be having an interesting topic coming up in August. Actually, this is a monthly talk show on how to settle in and how to adapt when in the UK. And we'll be talking about current trends in nursing, both here in the UK and nursing back home. So we're developing something for August, and then I would really like you all to be partakers of it. Thank you very much, Chidinmma, once more. And thank you all for joining in. And we
You're
hope to see
welcome.
you next month. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you,
I think
everyone.
we'll have to call it a day now. Thank you very
That's
much.
fine. Sure,
All
thank you.
right.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for sharing. Bye.
You're welcome, sure.